All right. So, welcome to class. Today, we are going to go over chapters 10 and 11. Okay. I do want to bring up, though, that I've noticed that in this class specifically, I do have pretty low completion rates for the online stuff, the Revel in Pearson. Okay, so we started off really strong, and then as the semester we got comfortable, some people just kind of stopped doing the chapters and the quizzes, and I really need you to get caught up on that information. Okay, it is going to automatically take points off for it being late, but as it should because it's late. Okay. But that is a huge part of your grade. What I am going to do, I spoke with my class this morning. Okay. What I am going to do is chapters 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, the last five chapters, because I got off schedule, right? That was my fault for getting off schedule. Because I got off schedule, I am going to go ahead and change the due date for chapters um, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Just to, but it's just going to be to Monday because Monday is when we are going to go over chapters 12, 13, and 14. Okay? So that's the only. Actually, I take that back. Not 10 and 11 because we're doing 10 and 11 today. 12, 13, and 14, the only three chapters that I'm going to update the due date for, just because we got off schedule and that was all on me. So there were things that came up that I did not plan for at the beginning of the semester. So that 17th, on Monday, is when everything, those last few chapters, 13, 12, 13, 14, those last three chapters, I'm not going to take late points off. Okay. So I would recommend that you do those first, and then any other chapters you're missing, go back and do those because that's going to be late regardless. Okay. Um, so any questions about this? So today is November the 10th. On the 12th, my morning class opted to have Wednesday the 12th as a project work day. Okay, but it is a project work day in class. It is not, let me stay at home and work with my group outside of class. No, it's come to class, sit and work for an hour and 15 minutes on your project. Okay, and then you can ask questions if you need help with, I don't know, if you need help with like how to format something in PowerPoint or how to create a slide, I'm here to help you with that on Wednesday. Okay. And then next week on the 17th, we will go over chapters 12, 13, and 14. We'll finish up the textbook. The 19th will also be a project work day. Okay. Again, in class, attendance is mandatory, not optional. The 24th and the 26th. So that's next week, the week after, I apologize. The week after, which is the Monday and Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Okay. The college is only technically closed on Thursday and Friday. Okay. But I personally I noticed a lot of absences that week because people have kids that are off the whole week or family or whatever, right? Because you're used to having that whole week off. So I don't hold classes. But what I recommend is that if you are available and you would like to, this classroom will be empty. So if you want to come find me in my office, I can open the door, I can turn the computer on, and you can practice your presentations in this classroom on the 24th or the 26th. I will be here. We just will not be having class. Okay. If you have questions about how to finalize your PowerPoint, I'm happy to help you with that on the 24th and 26th. Again, so I will be here. We just won't have class on those days. Okay. And then all of your projects are going to be due on December the 3rd. So when we come back from Thanksgiving on December the 1st, that is your last final project workday in class for you to like literally do the fine tuning of your project. You should not be creating anything new on December the 1st. You should basically just be fine tuning those last little details. Okay. And then on the 3rd, all presentations are due in Canvas. We will start the presentations on the 3rd. If we don't get through all of them, then we will come in the next week to finish them during final exam week. Okay. If we do finish all the presentations on the 3rd, then we won't come in for final exam week. Okay. Questions about the schedule for the rest of the semester? Yeah. For my classes only. Yeah. I can't speak for other professors. Okay. I can't speak for other professors. Yes. Say it one more time. The last week of the semester is December 8th to the 12th. Okay, so that is final exam week. We went over the final exam schedule in a previous class, so I just realized this morning that I am way far behind in uploading my recordings. So let me get those updated today before I leave. Okay, my morning class was asking about that. I apologize. So I'll get that out so you can go over if you have any questions about the final exam week. Okay. All right. Any questions, comments, concerns about our schedule? It's hard to believe that semester's almost over. Are you all registered for the spring already? Good. Good, good, good. Next week on the 19th, next week, this is not a mandatory. Most of y'all probably are in your first or second semesters. But next week on the 19th, we are going to have a job fair upstairs. It'll be in conjunction with the students that are doing their internships, their practicums in the spring. But just because you're not doing your practicum doesn't mean you can't come to the job fair. And so that'll be on the 19th next week from 4 to 6. You're welcome to come to that. But yeah, all right. So let's jump into chapter 10. All right. All right, so when you saw the title for chapter 10, clubs, what was your first impression? Country clubs, okay. What? Nightclubs, okay. Anything else? Book clubs, okay. When you think about the word club as it relates to hospitality, what do you now know after reading the chapter? Usually they're membership based, okay. What else? The different types of clubs. We're going to talk about those in just a moment. What else? Say it one more time. Yeah, so some of them are very particular about their members. Good. What's that? Yeah, the different positions within either the board of directors or like on the management team of the club. Absolutely. Okay. Um, so let's just jump into talking about clubs. Um, we talk about how some clubs have a very defined membership. Okay. So, for example, I mean, this is an association, but it can kind of be a club if you would. I'm a member of the Hospitality Association. And so there's a specific definition of what those members are, like what facet of the hospitality industry do they belong to? How do they support the industry? Versus somebody who just doesn't really have anything to do with the industry, right? These people are all coming together for a specific purpose. And so same thing with the clubs. Typically they're going to be found in the different like business related if it's within the city. There also may be, like Adam said, country clubs, which are going to be more of like the leisure families, or groups that will belong to those clubs. Typically we do have here we have country clubs, city clubs. What other clubs can you think about? Someone said book club. And I would say me, it's unless it's like an official organized and well social clubs, yeah. So was that again? Yeah, so typically those city clubs are going to have some kind of professional business relation to it. So, for example, we have the Petroleum Club here in San Antonio. Okay, and the Petroleum Club is it's in the Petroleum Building. It's off of 410 Broadway area. I'm familiar with that one just because when I was an event planner, the San Antonio North Chamber of Commerce. So the North Chamber of Commerce is an organization where all businesses within the north area of San Antonio kind of come together and belong to that organization. And they had a monthly breakfast meeting. And my boss told me, David, you have to go to this monthly breakfast meeting because I need you to go meet with all these business people because I need you to figure out, do they do Christmas parties? Do they do family picnics in the summertime? Do they do team building? And so that was part of my job as an event planner to go to the Petroleum Club. Now, the only thing I know about the Petroleum Club is that they have amazing bacon at breakfast. Their bacon is like the best. I had to remember that I was in a professional setting and I couldn't overload my plate with bacon, but it was so tempting. But the Petroleum Club, it's primarily going to be dining focused, and then special events. We also have what used to be called the Plaza Club, and that was on the Frost Bank building up downtown on the top floor. They've since moved it a couple streets down to the Weston Center. It's now called the Center Club. Um, and again, it's more focused on dining. So they have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's where typically people that are business people might go and have meetings or have lunch and have different like maybe make negotiations or deals or sign contracts and things like that. So that's kind of like a business expense for them to be a member of that club. And then also too, they have special event space as well.
You remember Calvin and Hobbes?
I do remember Calvin and Hobbes.
He had his club, Gross, get rid of slimy girls.
Okay. Not necessarily a club that we're talking about. That's more of just like a generic club. The clubs that we are specifically talking about in this chapter are going to be organized in the sense that they are governed by usually a board of directors, and that board of directors is usually governed by what document?
Sure.
Not the charter. I mean, how many of you have ever heard of the term bylaws? Who has not heard the term bylaws? Okay. Awesome. So bylaws essentially is the directions of how an organization is supposed to operate and how a board of directors is supposed to operate. So if there's ever a question in why someone's making this specific business decision, then they go back to the bylaws and say, what do the bylaws say about our membership? Does it say that our membership is only still supposed to be these criterias, or does our bylaws say that our membership's open to anybody? So the bylaws is what dictates that club, and it's organized in that way. Not all clubs are going to have the same facilities. When I think about country clubs, I think about take a resort hotel and then take away the lodging part. So no hotel rooms, and what you have left over is typically what you think about for a country club. It has those leisure activities. What are some activities you typically would see at a country club? Golf, a pool, tennis, a spa potentially, yes. Okay. And so those amenities as people are members would typically have access to that. There also is usually some kind of dining or food and beverage outlets as well. Depending on the club where you go, depends on the dues and maybe even an initiation fee to set up that membership. We have also social clubs here in San Antonio, like San Antonio Country Club. We also have one that's called the Argyle. The Argyle is again more focused on the food and beverage. One of our students, one of our graduates, is actually the general manager of the Argyle, and then one of my graduates, my former students, is in charge of their special events, and they handle all their special events there at the club. And so, what's really interesting, I went and did a tour recently there, and what I thought found was really interesting is that a lot of these people that are members of these clubs, it's things that have been either passed down through their generations, and their families have been going there for many years. But these clubs, um, it's not just necessarily about people going to have dinner, but it's how do you make them feel valued as a member so that they continue to want to be a member of that club. And so, things like recognizing important dates or having events like an Easter egg hunt or a Thanksgiving dinner or, I don't know, what are some other ideas for events that you can do? Like general holiday events.
In carving.
Pumpkin carving, right, for the kids. Just lots of different things that you could do to kind of show maybe pictures with Santa. And so you bring in a Santa, and then those members, year after year, bring those kids and they take pictures with Santa, and that's part of that benefit. So, part of being a general manager for the club is also creating that value that you would normally have with repeat guests at a hotel that you'd also want to keep so that you have that membership continuing. The difference though with the difference with what slide am I trying to go to? Here. The difference between hotels is that those members typically are part of the board of directors, which then kind of they direct the direction the organization is going to go. And so typically the general manager is going to be hired by or work for essentially the board of directors. And so they kind of operate that as you go. The board of directors is responsible for the success, the fiscal responsibility. So they're the ones who manage the budget, make sure things aren't going outside the budget. If something big is planned, then they also are going to approve that. Like, let's say we want to, I don't know, get new dining furniture, or we want to do some remodel. The board of directors is the one who actually looks at the budget and approves that. Um, they also manage all those policies. Within the board of directors, there's usually a treasurer that makes sure that um, we are within our budget. Okay, keeping in with that. The general manager sits on the board of directors and they are managing those day-to-day operations. They're the ones that are there to make sure that the guests are and the members are kept happy, that they're engaged, and we want to make sure that we're continuing to have those people. And then obviously the secretary just takes records. How many of you have ever served on a board of directors? Anybody? When you hear board of directors, what do you think about?
Like a hooded council.
Like a hooded council. It's not that. It's not that. A lot of responsibility. Yeah. I'll tell you, 13 years, was it 13 years ago? 14 years ago, in 2011, somebody asked me to serve on the board of directors for the Alamo Area Hospitality Association. And my response to them was, no, that's for old people. Um, I was 29 at the time, and I was like, no, that's for old people. I can't do that. And they said, no, I think you'd be really good. But the position that they offered me was community outreach. And so my responsibility was to figure out nonprofits that we could donate to, how we could give back to the community. One of the things that stuck in my mind, I grew up on the northeast side of town in Converse. I went to Judson High School, and right next to Judson was Boysville. I remember going to Boysville and touring their facilities after I graduated college. And so that kind of reminded me. And so what I did as a way to give back to the community was I organized a carnival day, and we just did hamburgers and hot dogs, and we did carnival games just to kind of give those residents a chance to just escape and just have fun and not worry about the stresses that they have to deal with. And so that was my job as a board of director, was to plan those types of events within a budget, of course. Um, and then after serving that year as community outreach, the president said, "You know what, David, I want you to serve as my vice president," which then means in 2014, I was the president of the organization. And it's a really full service organization for me, full circle, I should say, is because in 2008, when I was a student here at St. Philip's College, I earned the $500 AHA scholarship. And then 6 years later, I was the president of the association, giving the scholarship back to St. Philip's. And so that's one that I have been very involved with. And I encourage each and every one of you, if you have a chance to get on a board of directors, um, take it. Even if you don't feel really fully prepared for it, be honest and upfront. Say, I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm interested in learning what it's like to be on a board of directors. The network that I developed back in 2011 is still pretty strong today. But then also, in addition to that, I've also had the opportunity to serve on the Hotel and Lodging Association, the San Antonio Visitor Alliance, and the Texas Hotel Lodging Association has asked me to serve on their board, and an ex officio member, education focused, as well as the Texas Travel Alliance, which is a Texas statewide organization. So every time you have that opportunity to jump on a board of directors or be on a committee, I really encourage you to do that, because that's going to really help you build your network as you go, and develop those communication skills. Questions about board of directors? It is a lot of work. Oftentimes, board of directors are not paid. Oftentimes, it is volunteer. But what you get in the networking oftentimes counterbalances that. So I'll give you an example. 2011, when I was on the board of AHA, my friend Ashley worked for Six Flags Fiesta Texas. And so when they were doing they open up Fright Fest usually the night before just to kind of test everything out. They'll do a hospitality night. And so just because we were on the board of directors, we got to an invitation to go test out everything and preview it the night before it opens. Um, and then every year since then, there's some kind of hospitality invitation. And just because that one time in 2011, I'm never getting off that email list. I always want to stay on that email list. But so sometimes like those types of things are really fun, and you get to kind of enjoy and network with different industry professionals. Food and beverage in clubs is also very similar to hotels. There's usually some kind of banquet space for private events. But I think the one thing that I think is interesting about clubs and food and beverage that you have different from restaurants or even hotels is I feel like you have a lot more flexibility, a lot more creativity. And what I mean by that is there may be some traditional food that somebody has served at their family event at that club. And they're like, we want this is my grandmother's meatloaf recipe, and I would love for you to make this at this event. And then as the chef, you get to figure out what vegetables, what starches, what complements that, and kind of create that recipe and that menu. Or they may come to you and say, you know what? This is a really special event. This is a one-time thing, and I want you to create something that's one of a kind menu. And typically at the club level, the goal is to make our members happy. And so if that's what the members want, then figure out a way to make that happen. And so you get that kind of creativity from a culinary perspective. That's all I have for clubs. I will say this is probably, bless you. Um, Next to cruise ships, this is probably the segment of the industry and the chapter of the textbook that I probably know the least personal experience about. Um, but it was really interesting when going on a tour of the Argyle with Richard. He's one of our graduates, like I mentioned. Um, to go and tour the Argyle there. They are kind of unique. They do have, I think, five guest rooms, but they're primarily more of a social club for the food and beverage dining. They have multiple dining options, so some that are more casual. Some clubs that require gentlemen to wear jackets. They have very strict dress codes. So it all kind of just depends on the club and the reputation and the notoriety of that.